And for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's a tough seat. You're like right there.
I know, it's pretty much.
All right, 3.0 is to approve the meeting agenda.
I'll make a motion to do that.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Agenda is approved. All right, 4.0 is our acknowledgements and recognitions. We don't have any specifically this evening. So 5.0,
Acknowledge what a beautiful day out it is.
it is, we're above zero.
We're above zero. Let's acknowledge that.
Thank you.
All right.
Sunny day. 5.0 is our recognition of visitors and community comments. Welcome to all our visitors. Thanks for joining us here tonight for our February 2025 business meeting. And welcome to all of you online on the Zoom call. If you are on the Zoom call, if you could just keep yourself muted during the meeting, that would be great. And then we won't hear you, but you'll still hear us. So our community comments section is an opportunity for the public to address the school board on an item included in the agenda in accordance with the guidelines printed at the end of the agenda. We have a couple of community comments this evening, so we will go ahead and jump right in. The first one is Jason Irvin. Jason, welcome. You can come and have a seat at this empty seat right here. If you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourself briefly, and then we have a 3-minute timer.
8 copies for you guys before I start. And I'm asking that this is put into the minutes at all possible and viewable for the public in any way, shape, or form. Because it was so difficult to get non-protected public information, which hindered my ability and my wife's ability to make informed decisions for our children and or to participate in this community and the children that go to this school and help the children that go to this school. These facts are why I'm here today. Just following orders is no excuse. But after being informed of what you are about to do is unlawful, being told the statute number also definitely makes it cognitive and willful. Then finding out later, he was the designated responsible authority that was required by statute, by the exact statute that I told him. Even when this data was readily available and I gave him a written request, he did not do what was required as a responsible authority. He passed it on to a different government entity. This is after multiple times making it very clear I wanted copies. The law states I can get copies. He even told me he understood that I wanted copies. This doesn't even mention the troubles that led me to speaking to the superintendent that happened at the front office. To be fair, I don't think the Department of Education created a good situation over this because of their suggestions. But just following orders is no excuse, especially when you know the law. Government data is public data unless protected by law or statute. At this time, I'm not asking for the penalties under this provided statute, under the provided statutes. I'm asking all to help the ability of parents to make cognitive choices for the kids through transparency instead of making it harder for them to understand why things are happening or feel like you're hindering us and hiding things from us. As a result, I'm asking for training for all the staff to handle public data requests according to Chapter 13 of the United States of State Statute and Title 5 U.S. Code 552 of the Federal Code, also known as Minnesota Government Data Practices Act and Freedom of Information Act. Also admit failure to comply with Minnesota Statute 121A.065.
Okay, next we have Becky Isbell.
I'd like to say I support Jason and transparency for parents. I have grandchildren in the school. And so I can't speak for as a parent. But I do have a question regarding, in November, we voted on 3 portions of the school referendum you guys wanting money. Number 1 passed, 2 and 3 did not pass. Now I have heard through the grapevine, November of 2025, are you gonna have another referendum to vote 2 and 3 in? And if so, we've already voted. We do not want more money spent. And I'm sorry to say, when my kids went to school here before, it was all remodeled. We did just fine. Now it's all remodeled and added on. And now you want to add on and spend another 25 million. I just want to know, are you going to go for another referendum in November of 25 for more money? Which is going on our taxes. And if you're a tax or a property owner, it's going on yours as well. It's driving senior citizens out of this county. And the school is a big part of that amount on our taxes. So are you able to answer or will you not answer? But it's something that should be publicly known if you're going to rerun what we've already voted no to.
So we don't, as a rule, respond to community comments, but what I will say in regards to the question is it's something that we're exploring but haven't made a decision on yet. And it
Well, I
certainly would be made public for sure.
Well,
But
I
that's-
hope the public stands again and says enough is enough. And for one thing, a lot of this money is going to extracurricular. What's going to education? The kids are here for an education. Like I said to Therese earlier, my grandkids, my kids were all in sports. Did they make a living at sports? No, but more money is spent in sports than on the education. And the education is where the kids are sent to school for. So that's my comment. Thank you for listening.
All right. So 6.0 are our reports. 6.1 is the principal's report. Mr. Belangi, welcome.
Good evening, everybody. All right, so in the month of February, we've got a lot going on in Sawtooth Mountain Elementary. As we always kind of update you on, we've recognized now over 125 Sawtooth students for demonstrating Junior Vikings values. We're excited that next week we have an opera coming to the school, the Loon Opera, which is going to come for Sawtooth Mountain Elementary Tuesday morning and put on a production of the original The Little Mermaid story. So it's a opera that will be presented with 3rd graders singing the songs and being able to participate in some of the acting. We're gonna have it in the Sawtooth Mountain Elementary Gymnasium. 3rd grade parents are invited to come and watch it as well. And so that'll be really fun. And then the actors, the performers throughout the day will be able to visit the classrooms and kind of talk about opera and the arts and that type of stuff. So Ms. Johnson's been working on the songs with the kiddos in music class for the past few weeks. So we're excited to see that next week. Also happening next week in Sawtooth, on Thursday, we're having our outdoor winter activity day. So at the end of the year, we always have like a spring field day outside. We're doing that in the winter. They tried to do it last winter, but last winter was last winter and it didn't facilitate a lot of winter activities outside. So Thursday morning, all the elementary will be participating in different games. We're gonna have a bonfire. The first week of March, third graders are heading to North House to do their programming, which in the past has been the Paddle to the Sea programming, where they read the story and made little canoes. But this year they're changing it up and they're actually going to make fish decoys. Which is historically a practice here for a long time, and even currently today, fish decoys for spearing, ice fishing and that type of stuff. So they get to learn about that and make fish decoys. Fourth graders are going to be having their Youth Frontiers retreat on that first week of March, and then our fifth graders are taking their annual trip to Wolf Ridge, actually March 5th through the 7th. That's a typo there. So they get to spend 2 nights out there. So yeah, a lot of stuff happening in Sawtooth. And in our middle and high school, our 6th graders are going to be driving snowmobiles around on campus next week, Tuesday, getting their snowmobile safety permits. So that's going to be fun to see. And then middle school students have their own winter exploratory day where they're going to do some ice fishing, some skiing and snowboarding. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. And our juniors and seniors are getting dialed in for testing. ACT and SAT testing is coming up in March and April. And we're also, the big thing happening right now in the secondary is getting registered for courses next year. So I think juniors, did you guys finish up today? You got till tomorrow?
I don't know.
Okay.
We didn't do it today.
Okay. The juniors are finishing up and then sophomores will have their opportunity to pick their classes, and then it kind of just rotates through all the different grades. And then we also have Courage and Respect retreats coming up in March for our 7th, 9th, and 12th graders. And then the big announcement for community is that we've got conferences coming up in a few weeks. We'll be up in Grand Portage on March 10th, and then at school here on the 13th and the 18th. So. Questions?
A lot going on the first week of March.
Yeah, it's busy. So,
It's nice to have winter, huh? It's nice to have winter.
it is great to have winter. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 6.2 is our student school board member report. And we've got Miss Greta Youngdahl here this evening. Hello, Greta, welcome.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are
Good,
you doing?
doing great. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. I hope everyone has been enjoying their February so far. With the beginning of the semester and the end of winter sports, students have been very busy this month. Luckily, we just got back from our midwinter break, so students have had time to catch up and relax. For sports, our alpine ski team finished off their season recently. Their section race went super well. Our boys varsity took first place and our girls got second. Gochi Dimitrov and Graham Oberholzer got first and second individually, which qualified both of them for the boys national championship. And then they went to state, and at the state race, the boys got second place, which is also super exciting. It was an incredible season for our alpine team. And as for our Nordic skiing, Emma Crook made it to state and 4 of their varsity athletes lettered. They also had a wonderful close to a very successful season. And for our boys basketball team, they won a hard fought game against Chisholm on Tuesday, and their last home game is this Friday, which is also their senior night. And our girls had a tough game on Tuesday. They ended up losing with a score of, I think, 38-49. And the girls also have a home game this Friday. So if anyone needs something to do, come support our basketball teams. Our varsity knowledge pool traveled to MIB today for a competition. I'm not sure how it went. And then our Unified Club is hosting an event this weekend. Full Choice Theater Company is coming to the Playhouse to put on Sundown on the Jasper County Jewel. So yeah, that's this Saturday, if anyone wants that. NHS volunteered at Ruby's Pantry last Tuesday. We packaged lots of chips and candy and chicken. And in the elementary, students enjoyed passing out Valentines last week. They all brought something to share with their classmates. And this month, the 5th graders took a field trip to North House Folk School, where they learned about felting and they made bags and name tags. And then there's a few more additional things taking place this month. Driver's Ed just started up for students, and the YMCA's dance program began, and everyone's loving it. And also our volleyball team is fundraising for next season. with our annual butter braid sale. And if any of you want to buy from me, or want to donate, let me know. And that about sums up student life this February. So if anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
What is a butter braid exactly?
It's like this frozen thing. It's like a pastry and you like bake it. They're really good. There's a lot of different flavors. And if you're interested, I'll send you home.
Okay.
They're like. Couldn't you send all of us?
Yes.
Send the
Oh,
link.
I'll send you, I'll email you all the link tonight. No pressure, but.
Are you fundraising for anything in particular with that?
I think she's for like new equipment and stuff, like, we need a new volleyball net and I don't know if we're getting jerseys this next year, but like if we were, that would be for that. And also like
Traveling for tournaments.
yeah, like things like that. Yeah. And like camps and things like that.
Sure. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions for Greta?
Plugging the butter braids, they go in your freezer, so they're ready anytime you have a guest.
They
They last quite a
while.
while, they're real convenient.
Nice.
A testimonial for butter braids.
Yes.
Apparently, it's a
Thank you.
Cook County tradition because my wife is always, oh, the butter braids going on.
Been going on a while.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Greta.
Yes, thank you guys. Have a
Thank you.
good day.
Yeah, take
All
care.
right.
Have a great evening.
Okay, 6.3 is the superintendent report. Mr. Lindholm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, few things for tonight. Just for everyone's knowledge, next Thursday, the 27th, we will have people from ICS and DSGW here all day, meeting in hour-long sessions with user groups. And we've organized that into 6 different groups based upon kind of the area of the project. So one group will talk about elementary bathroom remodel and playground and the elementary special ed room. That'll be a group. And then another group will talk about the secondary math rooms and how that plays into the current weight room that'll become a new classroom, and how all that shakes out, and high school special ed teacher placement and kind of where all that stuff is going to go. That'll be a user group, et cetera. So there'll be 6 different groups focused on 6 different areas on that day. And then also on that day, Mike Laverdure is going to spend a bit of time in Michael Zimmerman's Ojibwe 1 and Ojibwe 2 class, dialing in with those students on the future ACK and Ojibwe room and some of those details. So we're excited about that. And then on March 13th, the school board, we will all be up in Grand Portage for our annual March meeting up there, and DSGW will be there and facilitate an input process around the whole design of the remodeling and the ACK and the Ojibwe room and all of that. So we're really excited about those 2 input opportunities coming up in the design work. In my written report on page 2, I included a Gantt chart or a project timeline that I've given to the board already, and that's pertaining to the design work, which is taking place now. And we'll be going through late winter, early spring, and then as we roll into summer, construction documents will be put together in hopes of having everything buttoned up and ready to go out for public bid in the fall, September, October-ish. And at that time, we're pushing into figuring out who the contractors are and that kind of stuff. So that's in the board report. Also in my board report, I put some legislative priorities if you want to see what those are. We've got several bills in the works. House File 1035 it does actually have a Senate file to go with it. That is a sales tax exemption bill specifically for Cook County schools and that project, in hopes of that passing, and then we would save $500,000 or more in sales tax on the supplies and materials that go into the project. So it's been sponsored already? Somebody. Yep, House Child and Scrabble have already jacketed it and it's on its way out, and the Costin Group has been really helpful in helping grease some of that stuff. So really happy about that. And then there's some other ones listed in my report. Please take a look at those as you communicate with legislators. It's important that we all kind of.
This SF 1197, the Jesse Ventura, overturning that, or is that something different?
It takes care of the same thing, but it's something different. It's a different approach. So the owner of a seasonal rec property wouldn't change classifications, nothing would change, but the money that was to St. Paul would come back to the school district. Our levy doesn't go up, the total dollar amount. But because seasonal rec monies would come into that, it would lower the
Oh, yeah, the
the
other.
percentage of the cost on the homeowners here in Cook
Yep,
County.
yep, I
So
get you.
for our homeowners and our commercial businesses, Senate File 1197 would be a very good deal. And House Child is championing that on our behalf.
2/3 of the properties in Cook County
Mhm.
are seasonal rec.
Yeah.
So that would really make a huge impact on
Oh,
for our
yeah.
local,
It's only
our local
fair.
businesses and
Yeah.
residents, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a new approach to it, so I'm mildly optimistic it might go through.
Mildly.
Well, all the previous attempts have never gone through. But this,
Well, was there one last year?
he put this bill on the floor quite late in the session.
Oh, okay.
But in previous years, there's been attempts to change the classification,
Yeah, right.
and that's been hit
Repeal
with,
it basically.
right, and that's been hit with a hard no.
Oh.
Because it's really only about 90 to 95 districts out of the 335 in
Where's
Minnesota that
the
benefits that.
Scaba stand on this? Do we know?
He supports it because it helps a
Okay.
lot of the people in his
Yeah.
territory.
Oh,
You should all know that a survey went out to family, staff and families, regarding, questions 2 and 3 of the bond referendum. And now the, IRRB has said they'll, provide $7 million in matching funds if that, changes the tune. So if you haven't filled out that survey, please do that. I will push it out again on Monday, so that families get it again and a reminder. But as of this afternoon, they had 143 responses, which is not bad for, 2 days that it's been out there. So
Will it go then to a wider audience after that?
that's what they wanted to do, is first test, the parents and the staff, and then we, the board, will talk about that, look at that and make that decision
Okay.
as a next decision in the process.
so that's in March. We'll talk about those.
Probably.
Regular meeting.
Probably.
I mean, anybody could fill it out right now. It's not like
Locked
It's not
down.
blocked, it was just sent to those people,
Right.
but. Like I clicked through the survey the other day. You can identify yourself as just a community member, it's
Correct.
one of the options.
And then last but not least, in the agenda tonight, is a recommendation for the school calendars for next year and the year after. The process for that was, drafted an A and a B and pushed them out to staff. Overwhelmingly, staff, I was surprised how overwhelmingly staff liked the B option for both years. And so we cleaned it all up, and that's what's in your agenda for later, when we get to action items. And that's all I have.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. All right, 6.4 is a report on our work study program.
Yeah, so I will introduce and ask Lil to come on up and join us and offer this report. I have asked Lil to share this with the board because I think it's an outstanding project and program, and she's championed it and made it happen. I just got to make sure I get my screen share here going, Lil. Here. Okay. There we go. So for those of you that don't know Lil is a special ed teacher here, working with our secondary students, and has been here for, how long have you been here?
It's my 50.
50? Awesome. And about 2 years ago, I think you took it upon yourself to go get credentialed to earn the work-based learning license. The historian in me likes to share that probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago, work-based learning was actually quite common in Minnesota. When students under the guidance of a licensed work-based learning teacher would go do an internship or work on a job and come back and demonstrate mastery of learning in a structured way. It kind of died in the 90s and into the 2000s. It just fizzled out. And in fact, only one school in Minnesota, is it still one school or is there more that offer that license? Did you go to Bethel for that?
There must be 2 because I did not go.
Did not, okay. Well, a few years ago, it was only Bethel that offered that license. That's how far it had fallen off the planet. And lots of debate statewide about it, and now it's kind of coming back, and I'll let Lil take it from there. And she got credentialed and has slowly, well, last year a couple kids, and this year you got a whole bunch of kids going. So you can take it from there, Lil, and I'll flip slides when you tell me.
Okay, yeah, so I'm just gonna talk little bit about work-based learning. So right now, 18% of our high school students are participating in the programs. That's, almost 1 in 5.
That 30-something kids?
Yeah, like 33, 32,
Yeah.
yeah. So it goes up a little, up and down a tiny bit, or it went up. Yeah, it moves a little bit, but it's been pretty consistently over 30. So you can go to the next one. This is just what the Department of Education says work-based learning is. I don't need to read it. This is just like FYI if you want to read it. So maybe in like 30 seconds you can.
I think the big takeaway here is that formalized word,
Yeah.
not like work release where you just go work. It's got a much more formal structure to it,
And the very, very last slide of this whole thing has a thing about work
Sure.
release, but I'm not gonna, I don't need to go into that too much. So just like every other class, there's a syllabus. What's required for work-based learning is a workplace syllabus and a classroom syllabus. And so I just took just a snapshot of the first part of the workplace one. So as you can see, there are standards, like over here, there are standards and then performance indicators, just like any other class. And we're required to have a separate one for workplace and classroom. And if you want to click on one of those, you can, if you want to see the whole thing. I don't need to like read through the whole thing, but you can, I think I made them all public. Yeah, and so like on the left are the topics that are included, and then on the right would be performance indicators. And so, like the goal would be that we're addressing all of these. In reality, it might not be happening yet, but that's what the goal would be. And WE just stands for work experience. So yeah, and it includes like how they get a grade and just like any other syllabus. I just took a couple of snapshots here of the training agreement. So every student's required to have a training agreement. And this I think is important because people don't always know, like you can be involved in work-based learning for under any of these categories. So it doesn't just have to be a paid position. It could be an apprenticeship or service learning or an internship or just any of that, really anything that qualifies that's over 40 hours.
40 hours in
the school year.
Okay.
And so I took like the formatting from the Department of Education, but then I added some stuff like this accommodation part I added. But a lot of this is required information to have. So every student fills this out with me, and then someone at home signs it, the employer signs it, I sign it, and it includes just some information about pay. We just have to make sure their students aren't getting paid under minimum wage if they're getting paid. And anyway, if you clicked on those links, you don't have to, but it has the whole training agreement, which is about 9 pages or something.
Sure.
So
it's linked in your board packets.
yeah, okay. We have a Google Classroom, just like every other classroom. I just took a couple snapshots of like how I'm organizing it right now. And so there's a workplace visit sign up, so I go and visit them students at work and check in and with their employers. There's the paperwork. We have monthly in-person requirements, and so we have assignments associated with that. Every other week they do this journal entry, and then in the opposite weeks they do their proof of work, which is just like their official schedule or like just like a little thing on their pay stub. And so part of that is because the credit can fluctuate with the amount of credit someone can get. And so we kind of like keep track of the hours, right, of how much people are working, and also just making sure people are working. Right? But I mean, I haven't really had much of an issue with that. So yeah, so that's just kind of we have a Google Classroom. This is how I'm structuring it right now. It looks kind of boring like this, but it's just for a visual, I guess. One of the assignments we did this year, so all the students filled out this like a self-evaluation, and one thing that all students scored themselves low on was just knowing like employment laws and stuff like that. And so one thing we did was students made I had a list of topics and they could pick their own if they didn't, if they didn't like any of the topics they picked. And what they did was they made these like one pagers about them. And so as you can see, someone picked wage theft law, and this is blurry, but it's the Fair Labor Standards Act, and this is pregnancy and nursing mothers, child labor standards, Minnesota employee rights. And this is about someone picked school conferences and activity leave. So what they did was they made these, and then the next step was each student in the class like picked other students to review other documents so that they would get exposed to more information. So they completed these worksheets on one pagers that other students had made.
Sure.
And so that's just a sample of one thing that we did during an in-person class session. And that's just like a rubric on how it was graded. So like they get a regular grade, just like every other class. This is a survey that this is just a snapshot of the survey that I send to the employers. And so what the employers do is they just kind of rate their students over here, like kind of grade them, right? Like how are they with time management and punctuality? How are they with verbal communication in the workplace and stuff like that? And these are all from standards that are being talked about during the class. And so 4 is like they exceed, and then they anyway, they rate them on the scale. And then they also indicate if they would recommend the student for further work-based learning opportunities. And then what I haven't done yet, but the next step is I'm gonna follow up with the student about what their employer said, and we're just gonna like have a discussion about it. And there were a lot of, mostly like there weren't really any big concerns, but I think it would be good for just a conversation starter. And then I just put a couple of general quotes that some people put, because there's like a box where they can just write some information. And so, yeah, that's what that is. I sent this home. I got out of like 33, there were 24 respondents before I closed it. So I thought that was pretty good.
This is to the parent, right?
Yeah, this is to whoever's at home, like a grandparent or aunt or guardian or parent. And I just kept those ones really short. Just like, are they excited about their work-based learning experience? Are they learning skills that are gonna help them in the future? Do they have improved school attendance? Which there were a lot of people said that they did. Are they, do they have improved career awareness or awareness about future possibilities, and how has their confidence improved? And then just they want them to list any accommodations that were provided for the student. And then if the parent and guardian was satisfied, every respondent said yes, one said somewhat, but didn't provide suggestions for improvement. So I'm not sure but I might follow up with that person just to ask, what could be better. There's a link to the website that I'm trying to continuously update. So we can just look at it quick. It's just a Google site for now. The thing that I like about how I'm kind of like designing it is, that's an old picture, but I'm trying to update it. But so it's, if you're a staff member, maybe you'd look there. If you're a student or family, you'd look there. But the thing that I like is, you can click on whatever, and I'll just.
Take your pick.
I put these buttons here, so like, if someone wants to get more involved, they just click there and then they just fill out the survey. And I don't know if I made the survey links public, so you might not be able to see them yet, but like if you're a student and family, maybe you would click here. Or you can click there. So if you want to click either there or there. Oops. Yeah. So it would give them some information, and then if they're interested, like they would fill that out and it would go directly to this document or whatever that I have, and they just would say, I'm interested, and like, so then I'd know and I could follow up with them about it. So I'm kind of always trying to work on that. And then there's just a couple of quotes from current students, so I'm just gonna read those quick. High school, this was a current student in the program. High schoolers should have work-based learning so they have the opportunity to learn and practice skills it takes to live in the real world and make a living in a real job. This helps students be more outgoing and meet new people that can help them with real life skills and real problems. And then another one was work-based learning has helped me to get out of my comfort zone and talk to people who I wouldn't normally talk to. So I thought, I know that kind of feedback is pretty good to hear. So, yeah. And then this is the time for questions. Everything that comes after is just FYI. I'm not gonna go over any of that, but you can look at it if you feel like it. It's just kind of the boring stuff, but it's important. So does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
So I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, the businesses that you recruit, how do you?
Well, so like word of mouth, right, has been a little bit of it. I've known like a student would be working somewhere and then they would sign up for the work-based program already having a job. And then from there, I'd be able to talk to the employer and just kind of like talk about the program and then ask if they had any other ideas around their community. So that is something that I wish I had a little bit more time to do. And I'm open to any ideas. I went to the career and job fair last year and talked to local businesses that were there. And so that's something that I'm hoping to do more of. One of the barriers, I think, to the program is not having transportation all the way up the trail, all the way to Grand Portage, all the way to Toffee, and connecting with like those 3 spots, that's been a barrier for me so far. So that would be nice if I eventually could expand, right?
So,
Yeah.
so the next question is, so are you coordinating with some of the things like we had the culinary arts to have some of those students get some practical experience maybe in some of the restaurants or?
Some are, so I haven't had to do that because there have been students, like, there are some students working at Fisherman's Daughter or like some of the local restaurants already. But Tom and I have been talking about how we can kind of combine our efforts. We did talk about combining our efforts with like an advisory council that we should have. So we talked about how we can like kind of combine our efforts. We just haven't made a lot of progress on it.
So connecting fact to that point, this program and the culinary arts program are both CTE programs that qualify for CTE revenue. Thus the comment about a combined advisory council, because that's a component of CTE programming. So kudos to you for thinking of that. And that brings us some revenue. So kudos to Lil for having that credential. And for both Lil and Tom for going through the hoops to get a CTE revenue generating program.
It'd be nice to see, and I know we're not there yet, but something with our industrial arts also kind of in that direction as well.
For sure.
Yeah, I did. One of the family comments from the survey said like, the suggestion was like, work with local contractors. And I've run into, I was talking to the highway department about a possible internship and they were very interested, and because of like liabilities and stuff, they need an 18-year-old, and so I've run into some barriers, I guess, with that kind of stuff too, but.
So how much class time versus work time is there? Like, what's the ratio?
So that's a good question. The actual in-person when we're in class has been an entire length of a class once a month. But it's all set up on Google Classroom, so every week they have something to do in there, and so the in-person with all of us together is just one class period a month. And I think when I intended it to be more at first, and I think it's been kind of complicated here with not just with like our schedule being every other day, but just some kids gotta drive like 45 minutes to get to work, or whatever. So we talked about that as a group, and I said, okay, like let's cut back on the class time that I'm wanting to have. And as long as you do the stuff I'm saying, and they've been pretty good about it. So yeah.
Is this like, is it Oh, throughout an entire year, what's the time frame?
So, yeah, it can be the whole year, it can be per semester.
Okay.
That brings me to another little tiny issue is, we do have some businesses that close for like a month, right? And then the kids in work-based learning, and so in that instance, I wouldn't say you can't be in the program. I'll say like, for that month, like, let's figure out what we're gonna do to get through that month so you can stay in the program, so yeah, it's a semester long. We've had some kids do it by quarter, which is okay, I guess, if they have, it has been okay in the past, if they have a study hall, but no, I wouldn't take them like out of a class if they're, so, yeah,
So does this count? I'm assuming it's an elective.
it's an elective credit, yeah.
So do they work, like, are they going to work every time that like class period would be or whatever, or is it just different schedules
It's
for
the,
everybody?
yeah, so whatever is on their schedule where it says work experience is the actual time that they would be going to work. And most of the time, kids are going to work at that time. And then sometimes they'll say, I'm not scheduled to work today, so they might stay in the library and just like do some more of their work, but on their schedule, they'll say work experience, and that's when they go to work.
Is there a way to like fix this transportation issue, or would it just be too unyieldy trying to go out to Coffee and Portage?
Well, just so you know, I reached out to higher ed with the Lloyd K actually is interested in trying to figure out if there's a way we can get funds for some sort of transportation. That's as far as I've gone with that, but that's one thing that they were really interested in trying to assist with it.
I wonder if our tribal transit director could help out with that as far as getting kids to Portage, because I've had people, National Monument came to me and was like, we want that transportation issue just kind of
And we have
flatten the whole thing.
Yeah, and we have a few kids from Grand Portage who are in the program, but they have their driver's license.
Oh,
They just
gotcha.
need it, so, yeah.
Thank you, Lil. My hope was that this would be enlightening for you, like you're learning something about something that we haven't talked about ever at the board table, and it's because it's relatively new what Lil's put together. And on that last slide, the term work release is not a term I like. Really, we don't, it's for prisons, right? You get work release for, I don't think it belongs in public school.
Well, that actually reminds me more of like my mom's generation, like the sixties, like
Yeah.
they didn't want you in school, so go ahead.
Right.
Take your senior year off.
And truthfully, most districts don't allow part-time students. Like, we don't do part-time students, we do full-time students. Trying to eliminate the whole work release concept and do a work-based learning concept where students are indeed showing evidence of learning to earn high school credit, elective credit for what they're doing, and make it meaningful, really work-based training skills. And thanks to Lil for building something from nothing. Like this was nothing 2.5 years ago. She is also a special ed teacher, and I would say a fair number of your students, some of your students are also in special ed, and this is really helpful to them in learning work-based skills. So kudos to you, all of our kiddos. So yay, good job, Lil, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for giving us time on your Thursday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming.
And being here to cheer on, Chad, way to go.
Yep, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to 7.0, which is our consent agenda.
I have a procedural question.
Okay. What is your question?
Are we allowed to vote nay on certain parts of the consent agenda?
You are able to ask for something to be pulled off for further discussion, and it will become its own individual item.
Oh, I don't know if I want to go that far.
So that's the process.
Huh.
Otherwise, it's.
I don't want to vote for this Title IX thing. And that's no knock on you. I know you followed the recommended procedure,
Yeah,
but
well,
I just personally don't believe in that.
so procedurally, you can't talk about it as long as it's under consent.
Yeah, so.
You vote as a slate.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so you can abstain from the whole vote on the consent agenda. Or you
Or
can
vote
ask
no.
to have it be.
But I feel passionately that the electronic fund should be
So-
approved.
Alright, so here are your options. If you want to request something to be pulled off for further discussion, let me know right now. Otherwise, we're not talking about it
Be
anymore.
that guy.
You can be that guy if you want. It's-
All right, I'm gonna be that guy. I wanna pull 7.5 and 7.6 for further discussion.
Okay, so.
Democracy.
There you go.
That's great.
Right.
So what we'll do is we will put those on, we'll just make those 8.6 and 8.7. Okay? So we'll move those to the end of the other part of the agenda. Okay? All right. Anything else? Otherwise, we just need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. All right. 8.0 are discussion and action items. 8.1 is to accept the January 2025 expenditure and revenue report, which is in our packet, and Ms. Oberg.
I'll jump here, but I have really got nothing to say.
Okay,
Pretty boring.
As we like it.
Yeah. It's like middle. Nothing stands out to me unless you have a question.
Revenue's tracking faster than expenditures. That's a good thing.
great.
We're always good at that.
And this is the halfway point of the fiscal year, right? January or close to it?
1 month beyond, right? Because we're, yeah, June through July through January.
Yeah.
Oh, so we're reached it.
Yeah. Great.
Good job.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Oberg. 8.2 is to accept donations, our donation slate for February 2025, which is in the packet here. Resolution to accept donations, which we have a few in here. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept February 2025 donations.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
Just like to thank the people that volunteered at first and second to put their hours toward our programs.
This person asked that this start an angel fund that helps fund needs that students have that maybe they don't have a coat or boots or supplies. So it was such a generous donation for a great purpose.
Yes. Thank you so much. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, 8.3 is to approve the modified 25-26 calendar. The recommendation is to accept option B, draft B.
So what was the big difference? Oh, sorry, is that be a motion first or?
Well, let's let Chris, if you want to introduce this one first, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So as you know, with the 2 year and a half of construction coming up, there was some needs to make changes to the way we've typically done our school year, like with our midwinter break and a 2-week winter break and a full week off for spring break. There's a need to shorten up some of those in order to get out by, you can see both calendars. School gets out by the Thursday with faculty in the last Thursday in May. The contractors want to be able to use that Friday to cover floors and just hit the ground on the first Monday in June. So in order to make that work, I put together a couple of drafts. Biggest difference really being the Grand Portage Conferences Day.
Oh.
Draft B in both years. That is changing that day from a full day off of professional development conferences to students at school through probably somewhere around 1:30 or 2, early dismissal for all students, and then teachers pack up and go to conferences 3 to 5 in Grand Portage. and then come back and be back here by
That's the
6.
version we got is the.
Correct.
Yeah, we didn't see a draft A at any point.
Yeah, right. Well, you did it in board notes, but it was a preliminary way, like 3 weeks.
I mean, this is the one that got recommended is to do the half day or
Yeah.
3/4 day, whatever.
Yeah, an early release day, and then that way you can count that day for instruction rather than lose it. And then there was some changes to little things like the length of the midwinter break. You'll see in the second year, midwinter break doesn't even happen. We can't do it in order to make it by that deadline.
But start and end days are the same between A and B, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually got lucky. If you pay attention to calendars like superintendents do, Labor Day moves all the time. And it has a domino effect in the calendar all the time. And we got so lucky that in our first year of major construction, so spring 2026, Labor Day is as early as it can possibly be.
So it's Memorial Day.
So that makes it September 1st. And then in the second year of construction, it goes till the latest it can possibly be. So we just got lucky. A lot of districts, when they do construction, their first year have to get permission from the state to start early, like the week before Labor Day. Because of where it landed, we got lucky and we didn't have to do that. So, yeah, that's basically it. They both have a winter break. They both have a uncomfortable 2 days right before Christmas Eve, and it's uncomfortable. But if we want to have those 2 days off, we have to give up something else. And then you've also got to pay attention to the balance of Q1 and Q2. And we always try to use January, what is that? Is that Martin Luther King Day? We try to use that as the semester break. So that weighs in on where you can, place your winter break days and trying to get a relative balance between Q1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'd like to have a few more days in Q4 just because of testing and field trips and some of the interruptions that we have. So.
And this isn't changing the number of like student days or that we have had.
Let me just double check, because one draft did. No, this is 169 student days both years and 182 teacher days both years. Do note, however, a new thing would be in both of them on the teacher days you see 182 teacher days. You see, I put in floating PD days, 2 of them in 26, 27, and 1 of them in the first year, 25, 26. We've not done that here before. That will be basically like a schedule with your own group to do some professional development. It's flexible. It's not a day on the calendar. So Josh will work with the building leadership team and we'll figure out how they'll do it. It's kind of like how we've made up snow days in the past. We've got some precedent doing it, just not preemptively. But that allows us to get the 182 in there and not be in the building in June.
Can you remind how many required student contact days do we have?
169.
169 exactly. So we're at the minimum. and
Well, no, that's-
Snow day.
The state minimum is 165.
Yeah, that was my question.
So we've got the 4 snow days still built in.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, we
So
made that
we-
change last year too.
A couple of years ago, because we were at 165 and we upped it to 169. I mean, suppose you could have reduced those numbers, but that,
One of my drafts I had it down to 168 because I just couldn't make it all work.
I'm glad you didn't.
yeah, for sure.
I have mixed feelings about that, like, cause the not having a full week of spring break is something different for us.
It
For
is,
sure.
I think there'll be some growing pains. I think there'll be a lot of kids that take the week off anyways.
you're probably right.
Uh.
It's temporary. Yeah,
Well, I don't know. I mean, from a parent standpoint, I'd rather have a shorter spring break than an extra week in June, which isn't here.
which we can't do because of construction.
But you could, in theory, take away 2 buffer snow days. Not really. I mean, they're not really buffer snow days, but that's where the conversation started at. We had less days total.
Correct.
We had the 1 year with tons and tons of snow. And we had to add extra days to the year essentially, I think,
Right.
that year. And then we decided partially just why would we be at the bare minimum of days anyways? We want our students to have, but we significantly exceed the required hours every year.
Right.
We were like less but not less.
Right, so is it advantageous to is it advantageous to But now you say 165 is bare minimum, we're at 169, go to 167 with the idea that you'd extend 2 days into the day after, the week after Memorial Day. And still have that, what you were talking about, where you end on Thursday and have a day.
Well,
You know what I'm trying to say? Like you'd have,
you could have like a full, if you took those 2 days and added them on like March 22nd and 23rd of.
well, I was trying to add at the end of the year.
I would say then people would get their full, like there is a way that people can get their full spring break that they've been accustomed to, but it's taking educational days away.
Right, but see,
And
like,
we could have the caveat where we say these are potential makeup snow days or something. We've done that.
but it's harder to do that though at spring break than it is at the end of the year. End of the year, you know, there ain't gonna be nothing else.
So
There ain't gonna be a snow day in the second week of May.
I was gonna say.
Might be in April.
Part of the conversation wasn't really just about snow days. The reason we got cut back to 165 to begin with was for a budget cut before all of us on the board. Because they could cut transportation costs or whatever. And I think this board felt like, given COVID and all the other things that had happened, that we wanted to make sure there were more educational days. And that we wanted to start moving the ball back in that direction. Because we didn't have those same financial things because of this board has really done a good job managing that. So I think.
Well, 4 days is a good, safe bet in this country, might need more.
Might need. It's true.
The other conversation that had gone on going like historically is there had been a conversation many years ago and at the time of budget cuts of working towards a 4-day week. It continues to come up over the years of school board members moving towards a 4-day week. And at one point they had done sort of a hybrid 4-day week sneaky thing where it was like some Mondays and some Fridays off.
Sarah.
I recall thinking it would have been when Sarah was a student.
Yeah,
I recall thinking it was kind of an odd, like, we're not having 4-day weeks, but we're showing some energy or movement towards that model.
huh,
And there was a lot of community conversation and strong opinions at the time.
Yeah, that's one I don't want to take up.
Yeah, I'm gonna rein us back in from that topic.
I'll make a motion, it works for me.
Okay,
I'll second it.
further discussion?
That would be on 8.3.
This is on.
Can we do a
8.3.
package deal? I'll make a motion for 3 and 4.
One at a time, but you can be ready for that. So this is on 8.3. Yeah, any further discussion on that?
Seconded that.
I did.
Rena. And this, I mean, you got, as our procedure calls for, feedback from staff.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like, this is the one.
Yeah, they overwhelmingly wanted B. There's only like 2 people that wanted A. And there was comments, but
People generally understood that
there were
the
some
rationale
complaints.
behind it.
But yes, there was very clearly articulated the why behind it, and most 99% of people get it.
Yeah.
Can you remind us what were the major differences between A and B that were presented to the staff?
The approach of Grand Portage conferences, whether that counts as an instructional day or not, that was the biggest significant change. And then
Seems very minor.
it was, other than, you're playing around with, I can't remember. I think I had a PD day in October for draft A, but that meant it shortened a different element. So they aren't that different because there's not very many variables that you can actually play with. Knowing that the end date had to be the same and the mid break had to be the same, then you're only left with adjusting 2 or 3 variables.
There was a day I was cranky about. I remember there was I think it was fall break, because there was a 2-day week and then there was a non-student day that next Monday. I don't know why I was cranky about it, but could be anything. But then you start, like you say, start playing with that stuff, then what do you do to the spring semester? Do you do
Right.
something to fall? So,
Right, and you have to keep your contractual 182 contract days as well. So if we were, say, to go down to 167, then we have 2 more PD days that are not on the calendar that we have to figure out how to deal with. So
That seems like a good solution.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor?
I,
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, 8.4 is to approve the 2026-2027 school calendar modification as draft B is presented here.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Just to point out that we have made modifications to calendars later before when something came up that we didn't see coming, or we had a mistake. I think one year we screwed up and didn't have a holiday in there or something like that. So just know that we have, it's not like these are concrete. They should.
New Year's Day, that was the one where you said, hey, I messed up, we gotta revote on the calendar. New Year's Day.
It was
last
New
year,
Year's
Day.
next for the year
It was.
before.
The observed day.
Yeah,
That's what it was, yeah.
Well, it's within the board's purview to update these calendars. It's a,
Cause New Year's fell on a weekend that year.
Yeah, it was,
So it was New
no
Year's
one,
Day and-
yeah, a bunch of superintendents were like, oh crap. None of us saw that.
I mean, it's a courtesy and just the right thing to do to be doing this far out. You know, we're pretty far out. So everybody can
It's
kind of
also in the
plan for
teacher
this.
contract.
So,
Yeah.
So Dan
But
can
we could-
plan for his next trip to some exotic place.
Athens. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, 8.5 is to approve the resolution. Let me see here. Let's make sure I say this right. A resolution authorizing Cook County Schools ISD 166 to make an application to and accept funds from the IRRB. So Chris, if you wouldn't mind walking us through what this is.
This is
for at this
this is a
point.
procedural requirement that I have to upload into the IRRB portal to apply for the matching grant, $7 million grant. So there's a bunch of things. I gotta do a narrative, I gotta do a budget, I gotta have this, letters of support, all of that. And then, of course, it's all contingent on everything moving forward in the fall. But this is just one of their buckets to check.
So this is not us committing to anything necessarily, but it's just,
It's authorizing me to move forward with an application.
sure. And the
but we
board
are committing our super to
to some time
to do, yeah, exactly, yep.
for sure.
It's the time part, yeah, with the help of ICS for sure.
Yeah.
Can you, just because I think we've been, transparency continues to be questioned and whatnot. Can you just walk through, you went through the process to potentially get funds from IRRB, right? That's what,
Yeah, so
Just like walking through
IRRB
it.
has a certain amount of money every year that they reinvest into regions of the Arrowhead that are tied to mining. A huge chunk of money went out to school districts and municipalities in the last legislative cycle. Cook County Schools was not one of them. We didn't ask. And I didn't know about what was going on in the legislature. That kind of hit us blind in the last minute. And I let our senator know that I was not happy that we weren't in the know on that and we didn't have an opportunity to ask. So as the board has talked about, when the referendum did not pass for questions 2 and 3, the question was, are there other funding sources? Can we do that? And so I reached out to Senator Housechild and then some contacts and ultimately was joined by Dan and our track coach. And we went to the IRRB staff and asked to be considered for the funding and laid out all of what was in 2 and 3 and what it would have cost our taxpayers had it passed back in November. And they encouraged us to ask for $7 million as a match to going after, another referendum in the fall. So if a referendum passes, then they will throw in 7 million, cutting the cost to our taxpayers down to about a third of what it was last time around. So that's where we're at. Now, they've committed verbally that they're behind this and $7 million is a fair ask. And now there's just hoops I have to jump through. I have to enter in all of this stuff. They make their final decision in May and ultimately nothing happens if a referendum doesn't pass in November.
If we decide.
Or you decide not to do it, then nothing happens.
but the potential money is a huge part of what has continued to have this. be
Right, I mean,
Part of the discussion. about
minus-
municipal.
Minus knowing 7 million was coming our way wasn't really a discussion, right? So,
So it's not exactly the same
no,
question,
But
the
I'm
exact same money.
gonna make a motion because I would like to make a comment.
Okay,
Accept this.
please.
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion?
Yes, I'm not like a big jock myself, because one,
What a start.
one can see that I can trip on my own stairs and cause a lot of damage to myself. But I know that sports, and also what's in this is also updates to our theater, which I think are also very important for kids. I know that there was a meeting this last week, and Bradis talked about AI to a community group. And I don't know if you were there, Rebecca, but about the harm that potentially can do to kids. And how do we, as a community, support kids so that they're not so caught up in, in all of this technology and AI and the danger of that. And I think one of the ways that we do that as a community is, especially in a small community where there's not a lot of options for kids to do things outside of their families, is to provide them with sports, with theater opportunities, with the things, the community ed things that we have for young kids and soccer classes and whatever. These facilities allow us to do a better job of that, of engaging kids and do that. And these facilities are not just used by the school. They're going to be used by the community. They've talked about running tracks, certainly the theater. So I kind of support it for all of those reasons, because I think it's really important to do these kinds of things, to give our kids the opportunities that kids get in a bigger community, and that they don't necessarily get here. And so that's why I think it's important. I think kudos to Chris for going out and saying, how do I get half of this money from somewhere else so that this becomes more feasible? So I wanted to say that largely for you, Rebecca, because we know each other, but I think it's a different ask than it was last year. And I think there are other things to consider than this is just sports stuff. And so I wanted you to understand why I support this.
Can I make?
No, you can't. You
Okay.
can.
Later, I'll tell you.
But I do feel like it's important that messaging gets out to the community, that this is something bigger than just a bigger football stadium.
Mhm.
It really is. And it has an impact on kids that are getting pressure from a lot of different places. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you.
Maybe add, just for the sake of you calling it a football stadium, the reason the football stadium was even ever brought to the table was not for football, but because we mostly track and complying with Title IX for women's girls softball. And that last year we had between 80 and 90 kids in a track program, so a lot of interest.
Right.
Lots of parents, lots of student involvement. And we don't have a track.
We never have a track.
They're running in the
here.
streets, which doesn't feel as safe.
Right, so.
For sure. And as a sort of a tangential benefit, that is something that in particular piqued the interest of the IRRB and our state delegation, is that by adding another facility to the region, it allows greater participation for all kids that participate in track in this area. Because if you only have a couple of facilities that can host a track meet, then everybody goes to those track meets. And then you only have enough time for only a few kids from each school to participate in the events. If you add another facility in, and then therefore another opportunity for more events, it spreads it out and it gives more kids the opportunity to participate. So it's not even just a benefit to the Cook County community. It's a regional benefit, and that's something that.
So there'll be more track meets basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of two because I guess when I thought about this, I thought, instead of having 2 or 3 at Two Harbors, they're gonna have 1 or 2 at Two Harbors and 1 up here, but you're saying there's gonna be more.
Yep.
In the pot.
Potentially, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There'll be more sites to host them, and so some, might be on the same weekend as an existing one, but instead of 13 schools being there, it might be 6 there and 6 here, or something like that. So, that's something that also spoke to those folks in wanting to support this, because it just kind of helps everybody.
That region,
So that's it's just another consideration.
Because they're a regional entity, and
Right,
for them, that was a big deal.
for sure. So, Any other comments on this?
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
I,
Aye. Opposed? Resolution is adopted. All right, 8.6 is to rescind the 2024 version of policy 522, which was Title IX final rule that was supposed to go in effect in 2024.
Which did,
Which
and
did.
it was adopted in July of 2024.
Okay. We are being asked to rescind this because that was basically halted in the federal courts. So that rule has been disallowed by the federal courts in all jurisdictions. So it is no longer the law of the land. So in order to comply with the federal ruling, we need to rescind it from our policy and adopt the previous iteration, which is what the law of the land is now. So that's why we're doing it.
If I may, I'll add one more thing, and that is, in Minnesota, the way we do business is run by the Minnesota Human Rights Act. And in the Minnesota Human Rights Act, it doesn't change how the high school league or how we in Minnesota will interpret practices. As a matter of fact, at about 4:55, right before the board, 4:50, right before the board meeting, I received an email with clarification and a guidance from Keith Ellison, Minnesota's Attorney General, that made very clear that executive orders do not supersede state law. Federal laws can and often does supersede state law, but an executive order does not have the weight of law. Therefore, Minnesota Human Rights Act takes precedent and dictates how we operate, and therefore that's how the high school league will continue to move forward. So this rescinding of Title IX and reinstating the 2020 version of 2020, it basically changes some operational procedures if a real Title IX investigation goes forward and how it happens. That's about all it does in terms of implications for school districts in Minnesota. In Minnesota,
so
obviously
is it-
different in other states.
is it possible as this continues to play out in the courts and goes back and forth between states and executive orders that we'll be changing it back again?
We've changed it every 4 years for the last 12.
So yes.
And I don't believe that this specific situation with this law is not as a result of a executive order. It was a court challenge and a federal
Upholding it, yeah.
in Kentucky or something. And it was challenged in Kentucky in federal court. And the federal judge there said, yep, we're halting the implementation of the 2024 final rule in all jurisdictions. Now, there are executive orders that are talking about these types of issues as well. That's kind of a separate issue,
Okay.
right?
Dialing into the high school league, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And
Which, like Chris said, the Minnesota Human Rights Act kind of steps in and says, well, no, that's not how we do things here. So that's sort of tangentially related, but not exactly the issue with how this is playing out. So
Gosh,
it definitely has a huge impact in other states.
for sure. So do I have a motion
to rescind it.
to rescind? So we're doing
8.6.
8.6, which was previously 7.5. So to rescind the 2024 version.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nope. I ain't letting somebody in Kentucky tell me what to do in Minnesota.
All right, motion carries. 8.7 is to approve the 2020 version of policy 522, which is the 2020 Title IX final rule.
I'll make a motion to accept the new version.
A second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Another big
Those
Halloween.
opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right. We just need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion for that.
Okay. We're adjourned at 6:15. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
Can I print it off?
All right, signatures time.